Mahatab, and I must thank Professor Shamsul Alam to chair this important discussion. And I also thank from SANEM three other two distinguished panelists and the special guest of today's event. I also thank all the participants. So you have heard from Dr. Bidisha the presentation, which is a joint work of SANEM team. But I'd like to add or probably elaborate few issues which may appear to be a little bit repetitive, but I'll try to make it more focused. So we all know that the employment generation has been a problem for the past decade, and we have seen that the employment elasticity of growth has been declining and remained low. And I refer to the work we did with the Planning Commission, and there's the employment study, and we actually surveyed quite a number of firms and households, and then the analysis shows that employment elasticity is actually declining. If we look at the sector allocation of labor, employment in agriculture declined but remained high. Manufacturing employment grew with ready-made garments, but in recent years it is also falling. So these are all taken from the official statistics. But we are also seeing that the service sector jobs are mostly informal and low paid. Also, there is a very high degree of informality in the labor market. We have seen low job creation even in the informal sector in recent years. So that all really prompted us to talk about, say that kind of jobless growth. Are we actually experiencing jobless growth? So furthermore, working conditions and lack of decent jobs are important issues in the labor market. We have seen growing rural urban migration and international migration, which are important contributors to poverty reduction and growth in Bangladesh. So COVID-19 has put additional pressure on the labor market. Due to shutdown or slowdown of economic activities, many have lost their jobs. Many have shifted to inferior jobs. We see that the major hit on employment is in the urban area. I can mention two of SANEM's ongoing works. One is Garments Workers Diary, which actually we collect on a weekly basis with MFO and Gates Foundation. And this survey is actually showing some deeper impacts on the garment workers because of this crisis. And actually we are sharing this result of this survey in a weekly blog as well as press releases, and I would like to share this with you in future at a larger scale. We have also taken an initiative in collaboration with Asia Foundation on Business Confidence Index by surveying firms nationwide. So we have just started the survey, and we'll share with you the findings of this survey on 8th August. And I invite you all. Actually, there's going to be a very interesting analysis where we actually surveyed a representative survey, I would say, at the farm level, and try to understand their business confidence. The preliminary findings are showing some grave impacts on employment and wages. So in the rural area, the crisis actually due to the COVID-19 crisis, what we have seen, the crop sector may not be that hit, but non-crop agriculture and non-farm employment are badly hit. All these are resulting in a rise in poverty overall, and we have seen that the badly hit is actually mostly hit is in the urban areas. So all these are resulting in a rise in poverty, which have already been discussed, inequality, and reverse migration from urban to rural areas. The reverse migration will add additional pressure on the rural labor market, as non-crop and non-farm economic activities and related employment opportunities are limited in the rural areas. Unless major economic reforms take place in the rural areas in terms of infrastructural and financing supports, many of these returning people will not be in a position to do something productive in the rural area. So that can also enhance or escalate social tensions in the rural areas. So the situation may get worsened with the likely influx of returning migrants from overseas. So in the short to medium term, my understanding is that the future looks bleak. The depressing effects on employment and wages may continue. Many self-employed in the MSME sector lost their capital, which can never be recovered. Also, wage employment is suffering as economic activities are suppressed. Therefore, the revival of economic activities is extremely critical to counter this situation. People are trying to cope up with this situation mostly on their own, but the adjustment cost is appearing to be very high, even at the household level, including the way households allocate resources on food and essential non-food, especially I'm talking about education and health. There are incidences where households actually spending low on education, taking out their children from this education and placing them in the work. So I think these things need to be, these are the kind of adjustment cost may be very high and which may not be recovered in the medium to longer term. So what has been the government policy? So my understanding is that the government policy response related to the current labor market challenges has been weak and inadequate. One major challenge is the lack of information, lack of up-to-date data on the labor market, which has been very rightly mentioned by Dr. Bozlo Khandokar, Dr. Azam Mansoor, and Dr. Imran Motin as well. So these jobless people are not included in most of the social safety net programs. Also, the existing social safety net programs are unable to address these growing challenges. So it is also true that the fiscal space of the government is not conducive for expanding the social safety net programs. However, under the current crisis, the government should go for an enlarged deficit budget to spend high on social safety net programs in general and labor market related programs in particular. Now, if we look at the management, so I want to talk on the management of the COVID-19 crisis, and this primarily involves three aspects: management of health hazard, management of the economic crisis, and management of social crisis, especially poverty and job loss related social crisis. So we are observing, I would really like to emphasize here that we are observing major institutional challenges in all these three aspects. There's a lack of coordination in the crisis management, and that is clearly observed in the failure in lockdown measures. It's an example of this lack of coordination. We are seeing corruption, clientelism, problem in targeting, problem in priorities, and kind of weak state capacity. All these are visible in managing these three crises. So there is a need for improvement in these three areas. Otherwise, it will be extremely difficult to actually come back to the normal economic track or normal track as pointed out by other panelists. So finally, I would suggest three things. First, the government should form a labor and employment commission, which will assess the current unprecedented situation. I'm quite sure Bangladesh never ever experienced this kind of situation in the past. So which will assess the current unprecedented situation and suggest necessary measures. The Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics should be entrusted to collect data and information on the current situation on a regular basis. So I fully agree with Dr. Azam Mansoor and Dr. Imran Motin about this high frequency data. And unless and until we have a better understanding of the situation, it is very difficult to actually take necessary measures. My second suggestion is that introduce new social safety net programs targeting the labor market. In this context, the employment guarantee scheme for the next 6 months for vulnerable people can be seriously considered. The modalities can be sorted out, and we can talk about the modalities of this employment guarantee scheme, but I think this is something is very important. My third and final point is that the revival of economic activities is a must, which is closely linked to the management of the ongoing health and economic crisis. High priority should be attached to solve the institutional challenges in the health sector, which we are observing very much every day, and implementation of the stimulus package, which is already, which has been very rightly pointed out by other panelists, that how affected industries, especially the small and medium scale industries, they are facing challenges in accessing the benefit of the stimulus package. I would like to stop here and thank all the panelists and chair for giving this opportunity. Thank you.